With the Avalanche in town, let's take a look back at the big trade these two teams made last spring. Bo Byram for Casey Mittelstadt. We'll revisit that deal. Would you hit the redo button on it if you could? We'll get to it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, and thanks for making today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel. You can always watch the show there. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by FanDuel. Get the season going with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's a game night. Sabres and Avalanche tonight. Big trade between these two teams not too long ago this year between the Sabres and the Avs. We'll get to the Byram Mittelstadt conversation, looking back on the arguably the biggest trade that Kevyn Adams has made since selling off pieces, Eichel, Reinhart. Once the team started to try to get good, biggest deal that he made. How's it looking? Few months later, how is it looking? Got some differing opinions on that. I got a poll up on Twitter that I want to update everybody on that front. So a lot to get to on today's episode of the show. We'll also preview tonight's game as well. And look back on your favorite Mittelstadt memories. I've got a couple of my own. If you would like to share your favorite Mittelstadt memory or your thoughts on if you could redo the trade right now, if you would, you could head over to our Locked On Sabres text club, or if you're just looking for practice updates, who's starting in goal, injury updates and whatnot, or you want to get a thought in yourself and anything else, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place you can sign up for our Locked On Sabres text club. So Sabres and Avalanche tonight, and we talked with Lindy Ruff on WGR this morning, talked a lot about what the topic of our last show was, where there's just no offense right now for the Buffalo Sabres. They are not scoring many goals. They are a low-event hockey team. And Lindy basically said that's what they've been working on since Saturday in practice, is not only finishing chances, but getting to those areas around the net, in the slot, middle of the ice, be a half second quicker with your release on some shots, and find a way to get this group to score some more goals. He did give some props to the blue line, who we'll talk a lot about today because of Bo Byram. Lindy talked about how he's very happy with the amount of offense that his blue line gives him and how he's given a full green light to Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, and Bo Byram for whenever they want to jump up in the rush, whenever they want to jump up in a play and help out the forward group scoring as much as possible. Lindy has given them the green light. He has also, I think he would anyway, he's kind of had to, right? Like, some of their most consistent offensive players all year have been Dahlin, Byram, and Power. Those three defensemen are doing all they can. I mean, Power and Byram are not goal-scoring defensemen. They are puck movers. They are playmaking defensemen. Dahlin is everything. And those guys have scored 13 goals between the three of them. They've got a bunch more assists than that. Those three are doing their job. It's more about the forward group. And Lindy kind of acknowledged that when he was talking with us this morning. And that's kind of a good transition to get to tonight's matchup and the storylines around the Avalanche being in town and Casey Mittelstadt making his return to Buffalo. First game back since the trade. A nice, longer career than you think Mittelstadt had with the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, he debuted for the Sabres in the 2017-18 season. Right at the end, after his college season finished there, he had 5 points in 6 games as what was he, 150 pounds when he showed up. And then it was kind of a 3-year journey of getting comfortable and figuring out what his role was in the NHL. You could even say it was more than that. I mean, he had, in his Sabre career, 186 points, and 106 of them were in his last year and a half. The final full season, and then that 60 games leading up to the deadline last season. In that year and 3/4, he had over 100 of his 186 points. There was nothing really going on before that. I mean, he was kind of lost. He got sent down to Rochester after a couple of years, remember? He was on the Sabres taxi squad after Ralph Kruger. So as much as, you look back on the Don Granato years, and we'll always remember what Granato did for Thompson and how he turned around Tage Thompson. And you might even remember what he did for Dahlin, right? He turned around Rasmus Dahlin. Those were his top 2 success stories that are still contributing to the Buffalo Sabres. Granato's third, if you remember, his third success story was Mittelstadt. Mittelstadt was nowhere when Granato showed up. And you could just say it was timing. Granato showed up. The style worked for Mittelstadt, but also that he matured right around that time as a 24-year-old forward. I mean, for a guy that was always trying to figure out how to get an NHL body when he was in his younger age. I mean, we'll always remember the viral pull-up video of Mittelstadt at the Combine way back when. I mean, he needed time to develop, and he didn't get that time from the Sabres. But by the time he did develop, at least physically, Granato shows up at the right time. The style meshes. And one thing that you got to remember about last year with Mittelstadt is while Tage Thompson was playing injured, and while Dylan Cousins was seeing massive regression, and while Tuck was even regressing a little bit, Skinner had massive regression, everybody on the team was regressing offensively. Mittelstadt was not. Mittelstadt went the other way. Mittelstadt embraced that style as best he could, and he was the most consistent Sabre forward last year. And you could say, well, it sucks we don't have him now. That's the question I want to get to. At the least, they were able to take all that development. They were able to take that turned around player, that value that was there last year that wasn't there a couple of years ago, and they flipped it for a very good defenseman. Bo Byram is a very, very good defenseman that I have been very impressed with, especially in the last 3 weeks for the Sabres, especially since he's been playing up with Dahlin. I think him and Dahlin work great together, and I think Byram is a potential top pair defenseman for years and years on this team. And at the minimum, he's a top 4 guy. And the fact they have him is a testament to what Mittelstadt became. They don't get Bo Byram if Mittelstadt never turns into anything. Memories of Casey Mittelstadt? For me, it's kind of sad to say. My number one Mittelstadt memory, and I'm guessing a lot of people's Mittelstadt memory, number one, maybe not a lot, but some, was before he ever played for the Buffalo Sabres. In the arena, the World Juniors, the 2018 World Juniors, USA Slovakia, in the arena the day before USA Canada outdoors, before they played at then Ralph Wilson Stadium, or maybe it was New Era Field at that point, whatever. They played at the stadium in an outdoor game, USA Canada. But the night before, it was USA Slovakia. And the US was down in that game. They were not playing well. Mittelstadt was the star of that team. He was the number 1 center. And he made the most beautiful goal he's ever scored in that arena was probably that goal, where he comes in on the blue line, the backhand toe drag across, and then he cuts in, goes left, gets tripped by the goalie, scoring while he's flying through the air. The arena went nuts. I mean, at the time, he was hyped up a lot, right? Like, he was a great player in college. He had been great in the World Juniors. He was the Sabres' number 1 prospect. And here he is in your building with a goal like that. It was an amazing moment, an amazing night. And then the next day, he played well at the stadium. Remember, he's wearing those Bills jerseys that were horrible for Team USA. So I'll always remember his World Juniors. And then, again, I just kind of went through his story as a player. That's going to be memorable. And then he did score some lasting goals, if you will. One that you'll probably forget and is going to be way down the list. The Sabres, after they missed the playoffs by 1 point, they played the Ottawa Senators at home, kind of a sign off to the season. Fans were in a pretty good place about them. They were happy with the season. And it was Craig Anderson's last game of his career against his former team, Ottawa. And Mittelstadt scores in overtime to win that game and get Anderson the moment that I think he probably deserved. More than that, though, but in a similar type of setting, but much more meaningful. Mittelstadt scores Rick Jenneret's last call. He scores on Rick Jenneret's last call as Sabres play-by-play man. And for how much we all love RJ and his banner, and we'll remember him forever, and we'll listen to his calls forever. His last call was Mittelstadt. And those two, just in that way, there'll be that small connection when you think of RJ's life and his career as a Sabre play-by-play man. It's more of a trivial, trivia thing, Mittelstadt being the last guy. But listen, it was his last game. They had to win it. They had to win RJ's last game. They had to give him that moment. They had to let him go out on a W. And Mittelstadt was the one who put that away against Chicago. So good for him on that. He wanted to stay here. Also, he wanted to stay here. And not a lot of Sabres leave on good terms. Eichel did not leave on good terms. Reinhart, not really. Like, who do fans feel great about after they left? I'm not to say they feel amazing about Mittelstadt, but how many guys come back with a video tribute, which I'd expect Mittelstadt's going to get tonight, and you get a round of applause. You get people standing up and giving a round of applause. Maybe I'm overestimating what we're going to get tonight, but I think fans are going to stand and cheer for Casey Mittelstadt because he was good. He obviously worked hard at it because he became so much more as a player than he had began as a player, and he wanted to stay. He wanted to stay, but between contract stuff and the Sabres needing a defenseman at the time, the trade obviously happened the way it did. Looking back on that trade, if you could hit the redo button on it right now, would you? And I think there are arguments on both sides. I'll let you know what our listeners and fans are thinking on that question as well. Mittelstadt for Byram. Would you undo it if you could? Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by PrizePicks. Hey, maybe you want to look at Mittelstadt in tonight's game. If you're thinking, revenge game, maybe he's going to score tonight. You want to look at more or less on goals or shots on goal. You can check all that out at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you could still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You could double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. PrizePicks, available over 30 states, over 10 million users. Sign up today. They put their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. They now offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account all season long. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly. You play your first when you play your first $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So check out. Think McDavid, if he'll score more than half a goal in a week. Austin Matthews, all the stars of the league. Nathan McKinnon is going to be in town tonight. All available to you. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app. Code LOCKEDONNHL. $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Avalanche are in town, and these two teams made a big trade in the spring. Casey Mittelstadt to Colorado, Bo Byram to Buffalo. Since Casey Mittelstadt in Colorado has played 43 games, he has 11 goals, he has 17 assists, and he has, obviously that adds up to, 28 points. 28 points on the year. And then playoffs last year into round 2, Mittelstadt was a solid contributor for them. 9 points in 11 games, played over 17 minutes a night. This year, by the way, he is playing a bigger workload for Colorado. Last year in Colorado, in those 18 games at the end, he played under 16 minutes a night. This year, he's playing 19 and a half minutes a night, and he has played 4 games in a row of more than 20 minutes. They are relying on Mittelstadt more and more to play power play, to be their number 2 center, and he is doing well. He is doing well at it. He is not lighting the world on fire. He has not taken a Sam Reinhart leap from really good player with the Sabres to 50 goal scorer with the Florida Panthers. He's not done that, but he's been very good for the Colorado Avalanche. Some of his underlying numbers might point to maybe the results are a little better than you might expect, that maybe he hasn't been as good as his numbers, but watching the little bit that I have of him, he looks like Casey Mittelstadt of the last couple of seasons. He looks like a legitimate second-line center in the NHL that is giving them some good center depth behind Nathan MacKinnon. Meanwhile, on the Sabres end of things, Bo Byram has played 42 games for the Sabres. He has 23 points, 7 goals, 16 assists. He is playing over 22 minutes a night in that time for the Sabres, and I've been impressed for most of it. Not all of it. I liked when he first got here last year, and then when he got paired with Henri Jokiharju, I think it really went downhill. I don't think that was the right partner for him at all. I think they stuck with it way too long. This year, thought a little bit of a slow start, although I never really thought he had a bad start. I didn't think he was amazing, but I thought he was fine at the beginning of the year when some fans were giving him a hard time. And I think he's been really good as of late. I think you're seeing him jump up in the play. He wants to get up in the play. He wants to be aggressive. It's like he sees this team needs someone to help them score goals, and I'm trying my best to be that person. And I think he is helping them. I think he's helping them from the back end as much as he possibly can. I mean, he's playing some big minutes in some of these games. He played 26 minutes the other night against the Vancouver Canucks. Like, he's a legitimate top pair defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres. Even, and he's also kind of allowed for me, Dahlin, to play his better side, which is his offside on the right. So there's that as well. Byram for Dahlin, or excuse me, the other way around. Mittelstadt, what did I just say? Byram for Dahlin? No, Mittelstadt for Byram. Would you undo it right now if you could? I said earlier this year, I would. I think I said it a couple times. I would do it. But it even then was more about the Sabres roster than it was about Byram. And now I'm on the fence because Byram's looked better and Mittelstadt's maybe taken a little bit of a step back from the beginning of his season. So for now, right now, like I would be right on the fence. I would have a really hard time deciding whether or not I would want to do that. I might lean no, or though I don't even say it. Then I was about to say, yeah, I might lean yes. Like I am right there on the fence, and ask me any day and I might wake up with a different answer. The reason being, what do you want? The Sabres' biggest strength as a hockey team right now, in my opinion, is the ability, the dynamic nature, the offensive ability of their top 3 defensemen. 1, 2, 3, you are going to have a very hard time finding 3 more capable top 3 defensemen on any NHL team than what the Sabres currently have with Dahlin, Power, and Byram. I think it is the type of trio that could lead them for 5+ years as one of the best blue lines in the league. And that is right now, if Power doesn't take another step forward, which I anticipate, and if Dahlin can actually get back to Norris caliber, which he did for about a year, and we've been kind of waiting for him to get back to that. And Byram maybe has more upside too, although I've liked him a lot. So it's not about Byram, and it'd be hard to say, yeah, I don't want that. I don't want that strength. I don't want that. You got to be great at something. And that's one thing you could argue the Sabres are great at compared to their peers in the league. But at the same time, their biggest deficiency at the moment is not only scoring and offense from their forwards and generating offense, puck carriers, playmakers. It's also what's currently happening at number 2 center, where Dylan Cozens is falling so far short of the bar of being a top 6 centerman right now. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting for him to turn that around. And it's just kind of not happening. It just really isn't. And that's now over a year of that happening. So when do you give up on that? When do you assume it just might never happen for Dylan Cozens? Mittelstadt would allow Cozens to go to wing, Cozens to go down to the third line. He would give you your answer. He would give you the guy you need on your team most right now. What they need most, I think, on this team right now, if you could tell me they could plug in any player that's going to fill a role, any surefire, you're going to get a player and he's going to fill this role for you. I think I would say number 2 center is what I would say to that question right now. And Mittelstadt would do that. He's done it for Colorado. It was Colorado's biggest need a year ago. And they answered it with Mittelstadt. And now they're good. And now they paid him. They signed him to a contract. And they're set. They're fine with their top 2 centers now. So what do you want? you want to give up your strength to fix your biggest weakness, or do you want to find another avenue to fix that weakness? And this isn't a magical land where you can actually hit the redo button. I know, obviously, that's not going to happen. All that to say, it's not bad right now. It's not a home run. You're left wanting. You're still trying to replace the guy you lost. But you got something in return that I do think is helping and I do think is valuable and is somebody that I'm going to want to see the Sabres pay after the season. So all that being said, I think right now it is right down the middle. I think it is defendable either way, whether you'd want to if you'd want to hit the redo button or if you'd want to keep going the way you're going right now. I will say, put this poll up on Twitter and at Locked On Sabres, 68.3% said they would not redo this trade. They would keep it the way it is. They would keep Bo Byram. 31.7% said that they would undo the trade. So Sabre fans right now are leaning they would rather have Bo Byram between the two. Which is good. Again, I don't think that's a bad opinion at all. I think the two players have helped their teams, have been really good players, but neither has taken a massive jump from where they were, and the Sabres, you could say, are really lacking when it comes to filling in for Casey Mittelstadt. All right, when we come back, let's get to tonight's lineup. Let's get to the Avalanche, the opponent. What's going on with them? Why are they where they are in the standings? And also, I got my parlay for tonight's game as well, all ahead on the Locked On Sabres podcast. When we get to our parlay for tonight's game, we are going to take you over to FanDuel Sportsbook. They got all the odds. Sometimes you don't even have to bet. You just want to look at, hey, who do they think's most likely to score tonight? Who do they think's going to get the most shots on goal? You could use it for fantasy. Use the lines for fantasy. I do that for fantasy football all the time. Or if you got a hunch and you want to take advantage and you want to throw some money down on it, that's, of course, available to you at FanDuel as well. Get ready to tackle the NHL and the NFL action all season long with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app will give you everything you need to place live bets all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Final segment on today's episode of Locked On Sabres. Give you a little preview here of the Sabres and the Avalanche. First, we talked with Lindy Ruff this morning, asked him about injury updates. Nothing yet on Jordan Greenway, Matthias Samuelsson, who have returned skating but are not practicing with the team yet. So trending in the right direction, but nothing concrete as of yet. Tonight's lines for this game. The Sabres are making some changes. Jason Zucker is going to the top line with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch in place of J.J. Peterka. I've got more to say on in a moment. Peterka going with Cousins and Benson. McLeod with Kulik and Quinn. Kulik back to the wing. And Krebs with Obe Kubel and Malenside. Defense is exactly the same as it's been. Powers with Yoki Haru, Dahlin with Byram, and Bryson with Clifton. It's going to be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen between the pipes for the Sabres tonight. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the ice, Colorado, with their superstars at the top of the lineup, McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cal Makar leading the way, supplemented with Arturi Lehkonen on the top line with McKinnon and Rantanen. And then Mittelstadt is with good players, but he's not with stars on that second line. Nikolai Kovalenko, younger player with Mittelstadt on the second line, and then Valery Nikushkin on line 2. The first player in NHL history that has the same first name as last name is in the lineup for the Avalanche tonight. Number 82, Ivan. That's his name. First name Ivan, last name Ivan. Ivan is going to be the third line center for the Avalanche tonight. And the Avalanche blue line, to me, has I'd mentioned before, there's not many top threes that could rival the Sabres with Byram, Dahlin, and Power. Colorado's does. No doubt. Cal Makar, Devin Tays, Samuel Girard, I think that might arguably be the best 1-2-3 in the league. I love Girard as a player. I think he's been criminally underrated because he's been behind Makar for these couple of years. Devin Tays has turned into a super reliable two-way defenseman. Like, you're going to see him on Team Canada in the next couple of years. And then Makar is the best defenseman in the world. And Makar is one of the best defensemen I've ever seen. The way he moves, the way he stick handles, the way he scores, he is so impressive from that back end. So that's what you got for Colorado. And in goal, Alex Georgiev. So the Avalanche on the year, the Sabres are 500, right? The Avalanche, with all those stars, surprisingly kind of far down in the standings. 13-12 is their record. 26 points is all. That's not that good at all. It's barely playoff pace. I mean, actually, it's not even playoff pace. So what's going on? It's, to my eyes, almost entirely goaltender. Georgiev on the year in 15 games, 15 starts, has an .875 save percentage. And his backup, UC Aniunen, I always talk about that one. It's a lot of vowels. Justice Aniunen. He has a .872 save percentage on the season. So younger goalie he was a draft pick a couple years ago, so he might have more of a career coming up, but so far has not started well for him in Colorado this year. So goaltending has really kind of killed them, and maybe that's going to be the answer again tonight for how the Sabres get pucks in the back of the net. Maybe it's because the goaltender on the other side's not very good this year. Who am I locked in on for tonight's game? Let's get to that. I am locked in on JJ Peterka. JJ Peterka, you could call it a demotion. You can not call it a demotion. Call whatever you want. He's not on the top line tonight. Jason Zucker goes to the top line. Peterka goes down with Cousins and Benson. Peterka is on a bit of a drought right now. And he, a little bit under the radar, has hidden behind Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn. Because those two are the two that are really struggling. That all year we've been waiting for them to kind of break out of it. Peterka's quietly joining them. That line that a couple years ago looked like it was going to be the Sabres' second line of the future. All three are now finding themselves being non-contributors to the Buffalo Sabres. And Peterka's joined his former line mates. Because in the last six games, JJ Peterka has 0 points. Not just 0 goals. He has 8 games without a goal. He's gone 6 games without a single point. And I got the graphic there up on YouTube. You can see some of the numbers there. He is trying to get the puck to the net, and he's not finding success at that. Peterka has 29 shot attempts in that 6-game drought, that 6-game span, and only 11 have found their way to the goal. 11 shots on goal in 6 games for a shooter like him is not good. He's got to get more pucks on the net. He's got to get more scoring areas. He's got to be a little bit harder to defend. Peterka has got to start stepping up, because when I talked yesterday about where's the Mittelstadt replacement offensively in the lineup, where's the Jeff Skinner 82-point replacement from 2 years ago, where's the 28-goal scorer that Victor Olofsson was 2 years ago, Peterka's got to be one of those 3 guys. He has got to produce that level offensively, and you would hope he would be the guy that could produce the Skinner level of offense, a point-per-game player that scored 30-plus goals 2 seasons ago. That's what you want from Peterka. You need from Peterka, and he is definitely falling short of that in the last week or two. So he is somebody that I'm locked in on tonight. He has got to get going. Maybe back with Dylan Cousins, they can get each other going on that front, but we'll see. Finally, my parlay for tonight's game. Looking at some of the odds, the Sabres are an underdog. Not surprising there. I think Colorado's a more talented team. A little bit of a big underdog. Avalanche minus 162 on the money line. The Sabres plus 134. The over-under set for 6.5, with it being even on the over at plus 100. My sneaky parlay of today's game, I am going Avalanche money line. I'm going to go for the Mittelstadt revenge parlay today. Avalanche money line. I'm going to go Mittelstadt, anytime goal scorer. They find a way to get him a goal against his former team. Maybe that's even with an empty netter at the end of the game, forcing it a little bit. And then I'm going to go under 6.5 goals. That's a little bit of a bet on the Sabres. That's a bet of, they're a low event team. They do not score a lot of goals. They do not produce a lot of chances. And they also prevent the other team from getting a lot of chances. That usually equates to an under. I'm going to take the under in this game, given the number is one higher than it's been at 6.5. So Mittelstadt to score, Avalanche to win on the money line, and then the under 6.5. Call it the old emotional hedge if you want. That's my parlay for today at plus 1065. So 10 to win 106 or 100 to win 1065 and so on and so forth. That is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Hope to be talking to you after a Sabres win. If you'd like to check out our sister shows, you can check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steal and Flip got you covered throughout the week on that front. Or Locked On Bills with Joe Marino, looking ahead to the Rams coming up on Sunday, all available on the Locked On Podcast Network. That's going to do it for us, though, today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres if you want to sign up for our text club. And we'll talk to you tomorrow in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.